Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Let's go to Texas now, back to Houston, where CERAWeek by S&P 500, S&P Global is taking place. It's one of the biggest energy conferences of the year. Alix Steele of Bloomberg TV just spoke with John Ketchum, CEO at NextEra Energy. She's sitting down with another big name in energy, Lord John Browne, former CEO of BP. Hey, Alix.
All right, guys, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. It's a tough tape today, to be sure. Lord John Browne, yes, former CEO of BP, but also now chairman of BeyondNetZero. It's a climate growth equity venture established in partnership with General Atlantic. Also a tough tape for anything beyond net zero right now. Great to see you. Thank you so much for being here, John.
It's a great pleasure.
Markets are falling out of bed. Oil prices are lower. Everyone seems to be panicking about growth, about recession fears, tariff fears. You have been in this industry, you've been a CEO. What is it like right now?
Well, right now it's uncertainty is as high as I can remember it since my entire career, which goes back a long way to the 60s.
That's a long, long way. So you've lived through a lot. What would make it more certain? What is the biggest uncertainty?
Well, I think people are playing with multiple uncertainties in different jurisdictions in the world. But the underlying one is, does this impact the world, and will it change overall growth? Could the growth stop in the world? I personally think it's unlikely, but who knows? So I think people want to see some certainty, and of course that's very tough to get as each of these things change. Everyone's being affected at the moment by uncertainty in demand, affecting oil prices, markets, so people want to wait and see.
Is the wait and see going to then become a continued search for beyond net zero, an energy transition, decarbonization? Is that still something that the energy community is committed to?
Well, we think it is. Obviously, we'll be as pragmatic as anybody, but we've found over the last few years, by investing in things that improve efficiency and effectiveness, we can invest for all seasons. We don't have to worry about whether a government's supporting something or not supporting it, whether giving us tax breaks or not tax breaks. We just look at things that are commercial and have pretty good returns. And they're in efficiency, as I said, and actually in things like the circular economy. Doing more with what we've already used and redoing it is great for efficiency and effectiveness, but all these things are great for the environment because they reduce carbon dioxide output.
Is that a different message than a couple years ago, where it would be like we need to reduce carbon emissions because it's good for the environment?
Well, we also believe that, but we've also been...
Two things can be true.
It can, or they are. I mean, it's a virtual coincidence. But, we're an investor not in heavy assets. We're asset light, so we look at the way software, and today what a choice we have of that with generative AI, how it can make things better for the world, and thereby reduce greenhouse gas emissions, thereby reduce the worst impacts of climate change. And we'd like to do our bit in that. We're not big enough to affect the whole world. What can you do with $3.5 billion? You can't do as much as you can with $3.5 trillion.
This is very true. Are there certain new energies or alternative energies right now where the value is really good?
Yes. The energies, so wind and solar and batteries have come a long way. And they're now actually really cost competitive sources of energy. Cost competitive for people who want to diversify, cost competitive for people who don't have energy in their nation. These are really important things for the future. So this is not about subsidies, it's about economics.
The other side would say, or a counter argument would be, oh, well, it's intermittent and we need the base loads of nuclear or natural gas or coal to supplement. How do you guys view it?
You need all of the above. Wind and solar with batteries can produce effective base load supply, depending on where you are. One size, I'm afraid, doesn't fit all. And you can make lots of sweeping statements, but it all depends on the details. But actually, even in the US, The wind and sun are out of sync between, Arizona and New Mexico. So, if you add the two together, you could produce great semi-baseload supplies for California.
So it's been a tough lesson for the energy shift transition over the last few years with the war in Ukraine, along with now President Trump policies, the inflation that we got as well. Are you getting any indication that on the margin, abandoned oil and gas areas or areas that were too risky or something might become viable again?
So first of all, no one abandoned oil and gas or coal. I mean, coal demand has been kind of flat for the last 10 years, so people forget that. And oil has been rising roughly at 1 million barrels a day a year for a long time, and gas at 100 billion cubic meters a year. They're rules of thumb, and they carry on. So we've had a lot of supply, and oil and gas will remain part of the energy mix for a very, very long time because there's nothing to substitute them. So some things will open up, but opening up is about the price of energy, and it has to be competitive pricing, and it has to be about your sense of the risk you're prepared to take. In the case of oil, you have to be sure that whatever price you think you're going to produce at is going to survive for 20, 30 years. And so that's always a big consideration.
Yeah, and the curve has been changing quite rapidly.
Curve changes daily.
Yeah, there was a report from the UK government that they unveiled proposals that could ease the tax burden on offshore oil and gas. They'd still ban any new leases, but they could ease that tax burden. Is that a signal? Like, what does that tell us? I thought the UK was going to be like all wind.
No, it can't be all wind, and it can't be all solar. I wish it could be all solar.
Definitely not solar,
but,
it's the UK.
Well, no, actually, as time goes by, the solar's better, even in cloudy conditions.
Okay, fair enough.
So it's got to be a mix. The key thing is diversification. Diversification, if one thing goes wrong, you've got another thing. If geopolitics gets in the way, you can't get electricity from a connector or gas from imports. You need diversification. It's what Winston Churchill said. The only point of security, the only key of security is diversification. So making sure that what remains in the North Sea, which is not a lot, it's had its way past its best, is used appropriately, is probably a good thing.
So regionally, when we talked about how you guys invest, right? Like asset light, really about the circular economy, where regionally is there the best opportunity for that?
So we've focused on really quite big chunks of the world. The United States, it's not by no means the majority of investments, Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa. So all of these areas have different things you can invest in depending on the particular nature of the region. Is it long or short energy? What is its what does it really want to do? What's its ambition in life? And it changes over time. And so you've got to be pragmatic, you've got to work these different places to see what's really good for you.
Or it changed quickly, as in the United States. So what would be good investments right now in the US, where a lot of the uncertainty, you could argue, is originating from?
Well, what's changed, of course, is the way in which the federal government is looking at these investments. And that one should expect. I mean, governments change. Governments tend to, I always like to think that what governments do for the energy business is kind of temporary. And they come and they go, and there are long cycles of change. It doesn't change what has to be done over the long term. Obviously, if you've got public market investors, you've got to worry about them quarter by quarter. We're in the private markets, we can take a longer term view. But long term, it's clear, the world needs more energy. It moves 50 million people out of poverty every year by getting access to energy. It's good for the climate if it's done in the right way. And remember, making sure we are not subject to climate change is not about saving the planet. It's about saving humanity from being ravaged by what's going on around them.
different voice than what we normally hear at CERAWeek. I really appreciate it, John. Thank you very much. Lord John Browne, of course, he's chairman of BeyondNetZero. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thanks so much, Alix. Do appreciate it. Once again, Alix Steele out there at CERAWeek in Houston. Lord John Browne, the former CEO of BP. For more of our CERAWeek coverage, check out our live blog on the Bloomberg Terminal and for day 2 tomorrow as well.